we're in for some fun here. Just awaiting the countdown. Oh, I gotta get that. Alright, so here we are underway. So right off the bat, they start outside the town of Cornelia, and the first thing they're going to do is they're going to walk in there and purchase a hammer from the weapon shop. The key to this particular run, and the reason it's so short compared to many other runs of FF1, is an equipment glitch that you see Crrool performing at this moment. So we're utilizing the hammer that we've purchased to turn it into a piece of equipment called the Knight's Armor, which has a high amount of defense. You can normally purchase it for 36,000 gil in Melmond, but we're not going to do that in this run today. We're just going to create a couple of free copies out of nowhere, and then sell one copy of it to get a bunch of money to get some supplies so that we can go adventuring quickly and efficiently. Right off the bat, looks like we're having a little issue with Box's stream in terms of frames, but we'll see what happens. So they stop in there, purchase the hammer to pick up to glitch it into a piece of the Knight's Armor, and then they head over to the item shop, sell that, and then pick up enough Phoenix Downs antidotes and potions to last them pretty much the entire run at this point. So they're not going to be lacking on supplies. So with the extremely high defense we have from the Knight's Armors, most of the characters are not supposed to be able to normally equip that Knight's Armor as well, by the way. You'll see both Crrool and Boxmeister basically fleeing from every encounter that they run into in this early part of the game, and any enemies that do happen to get attacks are not going to do very much damage to them. So we're not worried about losing any characters, or any characters dying or getting knocked down by Garland at this stage of the game. So Crrool's getting a little bit worse encounter luck in terms of the number of encounters. Encounter luck plays a pretty heavy role in this run, unfortunately, for the runners. Fortunately for the viewers, but very unfortunately for the runners, because there's nothing they can do to influence the number of encounters they get, other than trying to take as few steps as they can in each dungeon and minimizing the number of errors they make in terms of walking around or taking extra steps. So they reach the Chaos Shrine here before Garland, but they quickly detour into this little treasure room here, which you see Crrool doing, and we pick up the leather cap, which is another key item we're going to use for glitching here to turn into a piece of equipment called the Judgment Staff. This is normally only obtained from the bonus content, available only in this PSP version of the game. It has more attack power than all the weapons that are available to us at the start of the game, and in addition, when used as an item in combat, it casts Flare, the strongest black magic spell. So basically, they have instant access to an overpowered spell that lets them clear out large groups of enemies right off the bat. We see Box with an early lead here. Crrool just knocks down Garland. Garland only has about 200 HP in this early encounter here, so he'll fall down to 3 or 4 attacks, usually from our characters. Afterwards, the princess thanks us for rescuing her and escorts us right back to the castle. And we have a brief cutscene here where the king repays us for rescuing her from being kidnapped by Garland by building the bridge. And also, as we see on Crrool's side, we pick up the loot from the princess as another thanks for that. The loot is a key item we're going to need, but it's going to be one of the last things we're going to need to do in the game before the end of the game. So in other versions of the game, particularly the NES version, it was possible to walk out of this room without picking up that key item, getting pretty deep into the game, and then realizing you actually need the item. But here, you're going to see that if they had tried to walk out of the room, the princess would have stopped them with a brief cutscene. So it's actually faster to just walk up and talk to her to pick up that loot right off the bat. So after this cutscene plays out, as we can see on Box's screen, he's just advancing towards the bridge here. And we get one of the few cutscenes that are actually play out in the game, but luckily for us in this version as well, cutscenes are actually skippable, or partially skippable. So there's quite a bit of quality of life improvements in this version compared to other versions, if you have played any of those, that save a significant amount of time. The most prominent of which is obviously the equipment glitch. So we see, once again, we don't really need any actual experience from fighting the enemies along this route here. So our goal in making our way over to the next town, Provoca, now that we have the bridge built, is to just, again, continue to avoid and run away from every encounter we can get to. We see Crrool here getting a preemptive attack. The advantage of a preemptive attack compared to the other attacks is that on the first opportunity he has to flee, he will be able to flee. Boxmeister unfortunately getting a bunch of wolves, which have fairly high agility, and agility is a key stat in determining the turn order of enemies and players. So they have more than our characters at this point, and they will tend to act faster than us. That will change as we get more equipment here. But Box is the first to reach the pirate fight here in Provoca, and we can smack them with our staffs, but it's a lot quicker to just use the judgment staff in combat and take the whole party down in one go. Crrool having rather unfortunate luck with the wolves here, as he's just about to make it into Provoca finally. So as a reward for defeating the pirates, or at least for the pirates accosting us, they reward us with their ship. Box takes a quick little detour. These pirates actually have a chance to drop an item known as a leather shield in combat, which is another enhancement of the GBA and PSP versions, is that enemies have a chance to drop items in this one. If they happen to get a leather shield, like Crrool did from that fight there, he can turn it into another powerful item for glitching called the Mage's Staff later on. If you don't get one from there, there's one available in the armor shop here, so you can detour quickly and pick it up. So Crrool getting the drop saves him a few seconds of town backtracking, and he's just going to head out. In the meantime, Box was getting into a fight with Sahagins, which is another enemy group with high agility and evasion. So they will often outspeed our characters and take their turns quickly. So they are a prime encounter that we're trying to avoid so that we don't waste a lot of time. A lot of the run strategy or the combat strategy with a lot of the fights is just avoiding as much time loss as possible by quickly fleeing or quickly killing enemy groups in order to keep yourself moving. So right now we see Box with a slight lead, getting a preemptive here with spiders that are usually pretty easy to run from. Here we got Crrool with wolves, which again are still trying to outspeed him. And his odds of running are a little bit harder to run from those compared to the spiders. Here we got Box with another group of Gigas Worm Ogres, which are not particularly difficult to run from in general. Same group for Crrool. And their next destination here is the Marsh Cave, which Boxmeister just entered here. So the Marsh Cave here is 3 floors deep. They're trying to make their way right to the 3rd floor, as there's a key item they need guarded by a group of enemies right in a specific room. Relax. Crrool having a problematic encounter, so he's opting to just take it out rather than try to run from it unsuccessfully again. Boxmeister getting a little ambushed here, it looks like. So Box is here on the 3rd floor. He's going to detour into this. It's actually 16 rooms in here, and they're arranged in a 4x4 grid. So he wants the 2nd column and the 3rd row room in here. And here is a treasure chest with a key item, the crown. And as soon as you step on the tile right in front of it, you get you force a fight with Pisco Demons, anywhere from 2 to 4 of these guys. Healing up before this fight is recommended, as the Pisco Demons, in spite of the fact that we're wearing pretty high defensive armor, can still do quite a lot of damage to us. And if they happen to crit our characters, defense is actually ignored, so that can do a significant amount of damage to our characters right off the bat, so potioning up before fighting them is recommended. Using the Judgment Staff we picked up earlier does more than enough to kill them at this stage of the game, so it's the recommended strategy to attack with the mage characters who do more damage with spells and items. So Crrool takes them down. And picks up the crown here. Box, meanwhile, is stuck in a little bit of a standstill with his gargoyle pack here. He finally gets away. Nobody gets blocked by the bat here. That's a common occurrence that can happen in many dungeons. There's a lot of little bat NPCs that are just flying around, and they have a tendency to get in some tight corridors and get in your way. And then Box accidentally enters it, but it's an easy fix to just enter and re-enter a dungeon. So Box still holding a slight lead here, and trying to make his way now up to the Western Keep to give the crown to Astos. Crrool's making up some time, it looks like, by just getting some better encounter luck than Box. Box is the first one into the keep here. So he's going to talk to Astos here, but he doesn't realize it's Astos at first. We think it's the actual Elf King, but it's not actually the Elf King here. Astos has tricked us, but won't reveal that until we give him the crown. So Boxmeister is going through this fight here. The recommended strategy is to attack with the Judgment Staffs with the melee characters and use the staff as an item by the mage characters. Just trying to do 420 points of damage to kill Astos in one round. And hopefully avoiding the death attack that Astos just used on Crrool over here, as it can instantly kill one of our characters. If it's going to kill a character, it's better for it to kill one of the melee characters early on in the game, as the mages need to grind some experience over the early half of the run. But this is still pretty close so far. Box is maybe, I'm going to say 15-20 seconds ahead of Crrool at the moment. But 15 to 20 seconds is not any significant lead at this point, and can easily be made up over the remainder of the run here. For those of you wondering, this run should average somewhere between an hour and 30 minutes to an hour and 40 minutes, depending on runner skill and the RNG that players get. But the RNG that players get is going to play a significant factor in whether or not this can be a close race. So Box getting an unfortunate ambush here with these wolves. So an ambush means every enemy gets one attack before Box gets to input any commands. So it's a time waster, so 4 enemy animations have to play out before he can run here. And every character that fails to run during an encounter gives more enemies the opportunity to attack and waste even more time. So generally you're trying to run away, and you are hoping to run away as quickly as you can. So here we go. Box and Crrool look to be almost even now. Very close. Looks like Box is on the ship first. Fortunately, his stream's struggling a little bit today, so it's a little harder to see what's going on. But they're both on the boat, and they're both hoping to avoid particularly nasty sea encounters. Here we see Crrool's getting Buccaneers, which is probably the most favorable encounter you can get. And in the meantime, they're really hoping to avoid Sahagin encounters or Sahagin Big Eye encounters, as those can waste significant amounts of time, and we still don't have enough agility gear to really handle them effectively at this level. So they're both past the little boat section here, going up to Matoya's cave. Once we defeated Astos, we picked up the Crystal Eye, which was stolen from Matoya, and once we return it to her up here, she'll reward us with a little item called the Jolt Tonic. The Jolt Tonic will wake the Elf Prince in Elfheim, who was put under a curse by Astos. So we're in the midst of a semi-lengthy fetch quest in the early going here, with the ultimate goal being that we're trying to acquire an item called the Nitro Powder so that we can blow open a channel in a little island wall so that we can proceed through on our boat. Because right now we're landlocked and we can't access the rest of the map on the overworld. So we see for the first time it looks like Crrool has taken a slight lead now, just from getting slightly better encounters. Box getting a one enemy ambush, which is about as good as it gets if you're going to get an ambush. I guess that wastes the least amount of time here. You'll see Crrool here actually parking farther away and walking over the dock tiles. Walking over the dock tiles doesn't actually trigger the step counter in this game, so you can't get any encounters while you're walking on those white tiles here. And unlike many later games in the series, you can actually only dock your boat at these dock tiles or at the mouth of a river that you can traverse with a canoe. We don't currently have a canoe, so we can't do that at this point in time. So they have to land the boat at specific spots, which is why they're taking the paths they're taking. Box is getting a Sahagin group here, which is what he was really hoping to avoid. He's going to try to run, and he's going to get away, which is going to save him some time. The alternative to doing that is to use the Judgment Staff to clear out that group, which is not difficult to do, but the animation for the Judgment Staff takes probably about 8 seconds. You don't want to use it if you don't have to use it. And Crrool has returned the Jolt Tonic to the Elf Prince here, and then is rewarded with the Mystic Key, which unlocks a number of treasure rooms throughout the game here. The first of these that we run into is right in the back of the same castle. The quickest way actually to reach it is to exit the castle and then re-enter, and then walk around to the treasure room. It's a little bit faster than walking back the way you came when you first walk in here. The goal of walking in here is to pick up the Mithril Hammer from this first treasure chest inside, and we're going to glitch that again into the first item that really enhances our ability to finally go faster in this run, the Thief's Armlet. So the Thief's Armlet is a piece of armor that was added as part of the bonus content that was included in the GBA and the PSP version of this game. So it's not in the original game. It features actually more defense and evasion capability than the Knight's Armor we picked up earlier, and in addition adds 5 points of agility. And we're also going to be able to use the equipment glitch to put multiple copies on our characters, because we can put 1 copy on each of the 4 armor slots, but you're only going to see them put it on 3 of the 4 slots, as putting it on the shield slot at this point risks hard locking the game. If you put an item that does not have an animation for blocking, and then an enemy attempts to, and then a character blocks an attack from an enemy, it triggers a hard lock of the game. So for the large majority of the run, you're going to see both Crrool and Box leave the shield slot open because they don't want to risk a hard lock. So once they go into, once they pick up the Mystic Key here, their second destination is to go to Cornelia Castle, like you see Box doing over here. He just got an unfortunate counter along the way. Once he's in here, he heads to the treasure room in the back now that we have the Mystic Key, and the Nitro Powder I mentioned earlier is finally accessible to us. So he's going to dip into this farther of the 2 treasure rooms to pick it up. he's also going to duck in and pick up a mithril knife in the first one. It's another item that we need for glitching, but we're not going to glitch it at this point in time. Crrool, meanwhile, picked up the nitro powder and took it immediately over to Mount Dwerger over here, which is just slightly northwest of that location. So he's going to have to do what Box did over here. He's going to have to basically sail up here, find a dock, and then walk the rest of the way. And then this NPC down here in the bottom, named Narek, actually receives the nitro powder from us, plants it for us, and then blows up a little canal that we can use to escape from the early part of the game. So Crrool's locked into a little cutscene here. This little section where the canal is blown is briefly skippable. So Box is just entering Mount Dwerger as Crrool completes the cutscene over here. Alright, now Crrool's all set here, so he's got nothing left to do in here. Don't need any treasure, don't need to talk to any dwarves or anything else like that. So we just head right back out and back to our boat. And we're going to proceed right through the canal we blew and stop at the nearest town right nearby and pick up the most important weapon we need for the rest of the run. So Box is just watching the cutscene play out here. This cutscene probably takes about a minute grand total. So Crrool is going to sail right through, head just a little bit north and mostly west, and head over here to Melmond. Inside Melmond here, we're going to pick up the most powerful weapon in the game, the steel gloves. I'm just kidding. You use the steel gloves here, and you turn it into, you can actually glitch it into a weapon called the Barbarian Sword. And if you have never heard of the Barbarian Sword, that's no surprise because it wasn't originally included in the game. It's one of the bonus weapons that is actually only in the PSP version of this game, and features significantly more attack power than any other weapon in the game. It contains, I believe, 125 attack power, and for reference, for those of you that are familiar with Excalibur, which I believe is the most powerful weapon in the original game, Excalibur grants only, I think, 45 attack power in this version, whereas the Barbarian Sword gains 125, as well as a stamina and strength boost. And owing to the equipment glitch, we're able to equip it on multiple characters, including mages, if we so choose. You might see some players equip it on all 4 characters. You might see them only equip the sword on 2 characters. It's honestly just a runner's choice at this point for which route they're familiar with. There are slight variations in the route that just depend on how much glitching you want to do. The less glitching you do, the quicker the menus can go. But the more glitching you do, the more you can give yourself additional options for dealing with larger enemy groups or stubborn enemy groups that you can't run from here. So once we have that, we walk over to the Cavern of Earth. Box is still trying to make his way over there to Melmond. Crrool, meanwhile, has entered Cavern of Earth and opened a bit of a lead for this early in the game. It's a 5-floor deep dungeon. At the bottom is Lich, and we need to confront the Lich in order to relight the Earth Crystal, but we don't have what we need to be able to proceed all the way to the bottom right now. So we're going to go to the 3rd floor, and at the end of the 3rd floor is a key item we need, but it's going to be guarded by an enemy called the Vampire. Crrool took a quick safety save at the start of this 3rd floor, as this is where the enemy encounters can start to get nasty for really the first time in the game. Box, meanwhile, is doing the Barbarian Sword menu, and I believe he's only going to be putting it on 2 characters, whereas I think Crrool is often known to do all 4 characters with the swords. So Crrool has made it to the end of the 3rd floor, and here's the Vampire, and he's just going to utilize all of his characters to attack, and any single one of them that attacks is going to do enough damage to kill the Vampire, just like you see there. So we've gone from doing maybe 80 damage with attacks. Enough! to doing multiple hundreds of damage. And then he picked up the Star Ruby here. And unfortunately, once you pick up the Star Ruby, there's really nothing more you can do here. You need to take the Star Ruby to a giant that is blocking our path in another direction on the way to a cave. Now that we've defeated the vampire, we can actually obtain an item called the Earth Rod, but we need the Star Ruby to be able to get the NPC to move out of the way so that we can make our way over there and pick it up. So Crrool is working his way through this third floor. He's got no choice but to walk all the way back, and it's easily the longest of the early 3 floors here. Box, meanwhile, has made it to the 3rd floor, and I did not see him take a safety save. It could be a little dangerous not to take a safety save here in case of certain enemy encounters. In particular, you don't want to see large groups of cockatrices ambushing you, and you really don't want to see Pisco Demon groups because they are unrunnable, and with them being unrunnable, you have to spend time to kill them. But you're also hoping to avoid 9 enemy ambushes, kind of like what Box got there. Crrool actually made fantastic time out of the whole Earth Cave and has opened a pretty good lead now. But there's still plenty of time for Box to make a comeback here. So Crrool, with the Star Ruby in tow, is going to enter the Giant's Cave over here and hand it to this giant that's standing in our path, which will get him to move after he takes his sweet time munching on it. Box, meanwhile, is making his way on the 3rd floor, almost there to the vampire. And Crrool is out of the Giant's Cave, and he's going to make his way along this little path over here to finally get to the Sage's Cave. He's going to talk to the NPC Sada that's inside the cave. And once you've defeated the vampire, Sada actually rewards you with the Earth Rod. It's an item we need to be able to proceed all the way to the bottom of Earth Cave. So basically 2 trips through the Earth Cave are mandatory. And there's just no way around it at this point in the run. Crrool getting an unlucky ambush against shadows. Anytime you run into shadows in this game, you're either going to get a preemptive attack or a ambush attack here. You're more likely to get a preemptive than an ambush, a pretty significant advantage. But getting an ambush is a little unlucky, but it's nothing that's particularly dangerous to us here. Boxmeister is dealing with some whites and ghasts. They have a chance to paralyze our characters on attack. If all 4 characters happen to get paralyzed, that's really, really unfortunate, because that could lose significant amounts of time. Crrool, in the meantime, has picked up the Earth Rod. He's going to make his way back to the Earth Cave the way he came. Box is just going to do everything he can to try to make up time here by getting into and out of encounters as quickly as possible. The less encounters he runs into, the quicker he can go and the quicker he can escape, then the more time he can make up against Crrool. So Crrool is through the Giant's Cave, and he's not going to be returning to that one anymore. I'll do a little quick high five here. Box into the Giant's Cave, and Crrool's on his 2nd trip now, Earth Cave. So he's going to have to make his way through the first 3 floors again, just like he did before. He may opt to take a safety save again on the 3rd floor. The worst case in this point is basically if Crrool's party gets fully petrified, or if he gets ambushed by a group of cockatrices that can petrify on attack. If they petrify him, or if they ambush him and kill all of his party members before he can react, there's very little he can do about it at this point. If they only happen to successfully petrify 1 or 2 characters, he may consider trying to run or killing them, just to make sure. but they are by far the most dangerous enemy in this particular section of the game. Other enemies can slow you down, but they can't kill you like the cockatrices can right here. So Crrool is going to take a safety save here, just to be safe. Boxmeister, meanwhile, has made it to the Sage's Cave and is going to pick up the... And here we go. Here's a group here of cockatrices. But this is a relatively small group, so it's not a large danger to Crrool here. Boxmeister getting the Earth Rod, and now he's going to make his way back and do what he can to catch up to Crrool. But Crrool is honestly making fantastic time right now. At least he was, until these Pisco Demons came along. So Crrool actually has a few options to attack them now. Now that his characters have the Barbarian Sword, he can actually use physical attacks to kill them directly in one shot with all of his characters. He could also opt to use the Judgment Staff to kill them if he'd like. The Judgment Staff obviously has a longer animation, and it can also take some menu time to set it up so that your mages use it rather than your melee characters. So Crrool is opting instead to just attack with that. Crrool is ultimately planning to use attacks when he gets to the Lich, which is an upcoming fight here. So if he doesn't have to switch which commands he's using in combat, it saves him a little time. Box is working his way over to the Earth Cave. Crrool is now on the 4th floor, which is the second last. Actually, I think it's the 4th basement now. I think it goes deeper rather than up. Crrool is gonna... These wraiths can be somewhat problematic to run from, so Crrool is going to take a little half-and-half strategy where he tries to run with his characters in case they happen to have a chance to run, and if they can't, then he's just going to use the Judgment Staff here to make sure this only lasts one round of combat. That is a runnable encounter, but if you fail to run from them, it can be a little problematic, as the wraiths can paralyze your party members, and they do tend to attack quickly and can be somewhat difficult to run from at times. So Crrool's eating a little bit of a time loss just to ensure that he can keep running here. And Box, meanwhile, is zooming around and is going to make it to the 3rd floor here. He's going to try... He did not take a safety save here. They both have gold needles, which are an item that allows them to cure petrification here. Doing a race without picking up gold needles is not recommended, as previous racers in previous tournaments have lost runs to getting petrified in this cave. So it's, for safety's sake, it's pretty easy to just pick them up and eat a 20-second time loss rather than risk losing the entire run. Box is almost through the 3rd floor. Meanwhile, Crrool is here at the very bottom against Lich here. And Crrool is taking a quick safety save before this fight with Lich, because this Lich fight is particularly dangerous here and can be a bit of an RNG fest. Lich can open with a move called Blizzara, which has more than enough power to kill our party members at almost any HP level at this point of the run. So saving beforehand is recommended, as one advantage of this particular version of the game is you can save anywhere. And Lich doesn't even take a chance. Doesn't even get a chance to attack here, so Crrool's 3 attacks from his characters take him down real quick. Boxmeister is going to use the Judgment Staff to kill this unrunnable group of Pisco Demons here. So Crrool is past probably the first real danger point of this run, the Earth Cave. And it's very easy for Lich to use his Blizzara attack and wipe you, and there's very little you can do about it, which is why you take a safety save beforehand. If he does happen to kill you, you pretty much just have to reload your save and try again until you get a little bit better luck. So Box taking a save here. Crrool, meanwhile, is watching a brief cutscene here. This cutscene plays out in the GBA and PSP versions of the game. This is the first of the 4 Soul of Chaos bonus dungeons unlocking. As you defeat each of these elemental fiends, a bonus dungeon unlocks. We're not actually going to be visiting these dungeons, but you see the cutscene play out regardless. Now this is a really unusual situation here on Box's side, because Lich paralyzed both of his melee characters before Box could finish him off. Oh, that's really unlucky for Box. That was really unfortunate for him. I don't know if I've ever seen both melee characters paralyzed like that. So Lich actually has a chance to paralyze on attack, but the far more dangerous attack that we're worried about usually is Blizzara. And unfortunately for Box, he wasn't able to finish it down. Now, he only had Barbarian Swords on his 2 melee characters, so he could have tried to smack them with the Judgment Staffs on his other characters, but it probably wouldn't have done enough damage. So he tried to use the Flare from that, which can do some damage. And Lich was down to maybe 200 HP. So it was possible for him to finish that off if Lich had cooperated a little bit more and hadn't used Blizzara on the 3rd round of attacks there. But meanwhile, Crrool is doing his best to motor to the next destination here. You have to get onto the Earth Cave. You have everything you need to be able to proceed over here to Crescent Lake and obtain a canoe, which is awarded by an NPC once you have defeated the Lich here. And also, we do a little glitching and shopping here while we're here. So we're going to see Crrool go pick up the canoe as a reward for defeating Lich here. Box is going to watch the cutscene here to watch the Earthgift Shrine open up. So I'm going to put Box probably 1 or 2 minutes behind Crrool at this point in time. Crrool went shopping for some ethers here, which he's going to need for later in the run. We don't have any spells yet, so there's not really any value here. And also, Crrool picked up a mithril axe in the weapon shop here, and he's going to glitch that into another piece of armor called the Black Garb, and he's going to only do it on 2 of his characters here. Now this is an even more powerful piece of armor that we are glitching this early on, and the biggest advantage in this particular category, it's another item that was added as bonus content in the GBA and the PSP versions of the game. And the significant advantage here is it adds 10 points of agility for every copy that you equip on your characters. But again, it's also not safe to equip on your shield slot as it risks a hard lock. So he's going to put 2 copies of it on 2 of his characters to give them an additional 15 agility, because the Thief's Armlets he had on everyone before were only adding 5 for each copy. So he had plus 15 agility total for the 3 copies he had on each character. Now 2 of his characters are going to have plus 30 agility, which is going to aid their chances to run successfully in combat, and also increase the odds of them going earlier in the combat order. Box, meanwhile, is just working his way over here to get to Crescent Lake. It's a little bit of a walk from that dock that you see there. Crrool, meanwhile, has the canoe and is working his way through this little maze here over to the Ice Cave, which is probably the most dangerous dungeon in this entire run in terms of the encounters and the risk of a time loss. So Crrool's just getting significantly better luck than Box in this early going, including that wipe that he got. And Crrool's not going to mess around. He's going to take a quick safety save here at the start of the cave in case something goes wrong here. Most common enemies you're going to see right here are Pisco Demons on this first floor, which are still unrunnable while here. So he's going to... quickest way to deal with these larger groups is just to use the Judgment Staff as an item to cast Flare. Box, meanwhile, is selling some equipment here, and he's going to take... there's going to be a slight variation in the routes that they do here. So Box opted to sell some equipment here to set it up, and he's going to pick up an additional piece of gear called the Mithril Glove and glitch that into another weapon that we're going to use here. So he's going to do the same Black Garb menu that we saw earlier, and he's also going to use the Mithril Knife that he picked up way back in Cornelia and glitch an item called the Black Row, which he can use in combat to cast Blizzara. It doesn't do as much damage as the Judgment Staff, but it has a significantly faster animation. So for enemies that are weak to ice and that he can do enough damage against them, it saves a good 4 or 5 seconds of animation time to use that. And he's also going to use the Mithril Glove he picked up here in the armor shop to turn it into a weapon called the Lust Dagger. And he's going to equip that on 2 of his characters, in particular his mages. This is another bonus item that is only in the PSP version of the game. It's only normally obtained from defeating the super boss in the PSP exclusive bonus dungeon called the Labyrinth of Time. Equipping it on a character adds 20 points of agility. So between that and the 3 copies of the Black Garbs, that character now has 50 points of agility in addition to their usual stats from leveling up, which gives them a huge boost in terms of acting quickly in combat and going earlier in the turn order. And it significantly raises their chance to their success rate to run from enemies. So the reason, there's a question in chat, why do they swap the order of their mages? It's a function of the equipment glitch. The only way to get certain pieces of equipment onto your characters is that the item that you want to glitch from, in this case, like if you're in Box's situation, you want to glitch the Mithril Gloves into the Lust Dagger. The only way to do that is that one property of the equipment glitch is that you must, the characters must be adjacent that you're glitching to in your party order. And Crrool's getting really unlucky here with this Dark Wizard ambush. That's one particular encounter type he was hoping to avoid, as that can waste significant time if they ambush you, because their Faraga attack is pretty much impossible to survive at this level. So Crrool thankfully saved before this little spike encounter here. So he minimizes time loss from that kind of encounter here. So to finish answering my question from earlier, though, Box basically put the Lust Dagger on one of his mages and then had to adjust the formation so that the Black Mage was also next to his warrior at that point in time, so that the warrior could additionally put a Lust Dagger on him. Crrool didn't need to do that because Crrool did not pick up the Lust Dagger earlier. So it's one of the restrictions of the equipment glitch is that the character that has the item that you want to use to glitch to the other ones, basically that character has to be adjacent to whomever you want to put it onto in the formation order. So not due to Crrool's unfortunate wipe to that, he's lost a little bit of time to Box here. And Box, meanwhile, is better equipped to be able to handle encounters at this point and has more agility on his characters, as well as has, I believe, Black Garbs on 3 of the 4 characters instead of 2 like Crrool did. Crrool's using a slightly older route, and honestly, neither route is necessarily better than the other. It just honestly depends on which enemy encounters you might run into at this point in the run. Meanwhile, Crrool has perfectly set up what he wanted to do at this point. He intentionally kept his characters, especially his melee characters, at low health, so that when he ran into the Evil Eye here, the Evil Eye could cast Thundara and finish off the party members, and that could facilitate a little XP grinding session, because surviving characters are the only ones that gain experience in combat here. So by killing off the Thief and the Warrior in the early going, basically your mages get twice as much experience. And the goal here is to try to get your mages to level 18, either 17 or 18, with the ultimate goal being that you want them to be level 19 by the time you purchase spells, a little bit later in the run here. So Crrool's going to be grinding here for about a minute or two. This is really the only grinding you're going to see in this entire run, pretty much. There's no other need for levels along the rest of this. Boxmeister is meanwhile making his way through the ice cave and catching up a little bit here. Is this game worth playing? I wouldn't say that this game is worth playing if you're at all interested in the history of Final Fantasy or how this franchise began, because I mean it doesn't resemble, recent entries don't really resemble the earlier ones anymore. But if you're curious about that, this is by far the most casual and easiest version to pick up and play. Box getting a large group of Pisco Demons, which again are still unrunnable, so has to spend a little time to kill them off at this point. Crrool is all set with his grind at this point and has resurrected his characters and taken a quick safety save so he doesn't have to repeat that here. Box is just about to start the grind over here, and he's going to take a quick safety save just in case he makes a movement mistake in this little section here. So Boxmeister is probably 1 or 2 minutes behind and has to do the grind section here at this point. So he's going to wait and see if Evil Eye will cooperate and cast Thundara, or otherwise kill his characters off. That gaze attack right there just killed off one of them. Box is a little worried here, just because the next gaze attack in the order that Evil Eye can use is a petrify attack, and he doesn't want his mages petrified if he can't avoid it. So Box didn't quite get the setup he wants, so he's basically going to kill it off, get the experience, and reset, and then try again after he unpetrifies his character here. Crrool, meanwhile, is making his way back along the river, and is now that he picked up the Levistone that Box picked up, he's going to take it down to the desert where there's an airship buried, and we can use the Levistone to raise the airship from the desert there. So now Box got the setup he wanted, except his mage is a little lower on max health than he'd like, and unfortunately bit the dust on that Thundara, so he did not get the experience from that fight. But considering that the white mage didn't survive the other fight, that he's still relatively even in experience. And now he can begin his grind in earnest here. And as Crrool is mentioning to that question in chat, you can't attack your own party members in this particular version. Actually, I don't think you can do it in any version of this, of FF1. FF2, I believe, is the first game in the series that you can do that. So Crrool has to skip a little cutscene here to pick that up, and then he's going to make his way over first to the Citadel Trials. Now that we have access to the airship, this is the fastest form of travel, and while you're flying, there's no risk of encounters. Crrool's going to take a quick safety save here before entering this little desert. While desert has a relatively low chance to get an encounter, there's an enemy called the Sandworm you can run into here, and if they happen to ambush you or otherwise attack before you get to attack, it can be very dangerous for your party, as they have no defense against its Earthquake move. And Crrool actually does get a Sandworm there, so he opts to take care of it, rather than try to run and risk dying. There's a risk either way, so it's just up to you whether or not you want to try to run away from that. Each runner has to basically gauge their own level of risk and decide what they're comfortable with and what they're willing to accept and not accept. Safety saves can mitigate wipes in case you happen to get really poor luck, but if you don't happen to get dangerous encounters, then taking saves can basically just waste a few seconds of your time. So Box is nearly done here, is on the final floor, just has to get the rest on the way out. And Crrool in the meantime is getting some unrunnable Minotaur zombie encounters here in the Citadel. Crrool is on the second floor of the Citadel here, which is a little bit of a teleporter maze. I believe there's 9 or 10 rooms here, and some of the rooms have 1 or 2 teleporters you can take. If you have the option to take them, you usually want to take the bottom or the rightmost one, as that will continue you along the correct path. Some rooms only have 1 teleporter, and you only have 1 option. If you happen to take the wrong one, though, it will put you back at the start of the floor, which you don't want. So once you're through that, you're onto the final floor here, the 3rd floor. And stepping on this tile right here forces a fight with nightmares. This is actually a runnable encounter. If you feel lucky, you can try to run from them. It's often faster to just attack them with your characters, though, at this point. Boxmeister is making his way back from the ice cave to go pick up the airship at this point. Crrool takes a small detour and picks up this little healing staff up here. It's for a key item we're going to need to glitch a little bit later on, called the Lordly Robes. The healing staff can be used in combat to actually heal our characters a little bit, but we're going to have better ways to do that with some spells later on, so we don't really use it for that purpose except as an emergency backup strat. So once Crrool picked up that staff, he had to step onto that nightmare tile again and force another encounter with them, as there was no way around that. So Crrool is still working his way through the final floor. He's going to detour over here and pick up an item called the gauntlets from this chest in the bottom left corner here. Boxmeister, meanwhile, is picking up the airship with a levistone. So Crrool's all set here. He's just got to go pick up the one last chest and then head out of this citadel here. So Boxmeister's going to get in the ship and start making his way over here. Crrool, meanwhile, is basically the entire citadel ahead of him at this point. That's several minutes. When you try to exit the citadel, you're forced into a fight with this dragon zombie here, and it's unrunnable, so you have to just take care of it before you can exit. And Crrool's going to make the walk back while Box is going to start making the walk over to Citadel. So you're going to see them high-five again here. Now, if you're wondering why they park so far away, it's because all of these tiles that you see them walking across are basically unlandable airship tiles. So the spot they landed to this east of the Citadel is actually the closest landing spot you can take. You could optionally sail the ship there and land it at that little river right near the Citadel, but sailing on the overworld risks encounters and is only half as fast as movement-wise as the airship. So in general, it's a little bit faster to be using the airship. So Boxmeister starts the Citadel while Crrool is done here. Enough. Crrool, now that he has the rat's tail, is going to take it over here and present it to the Dragon King Bahamut, who accepts it as a token of our courage and rewards us with the class upgrades that we need here. And it's significant because at this point, because once our characters are upgraded, they have access to spells and they have access to spells that they didn't have access to earlier. It increases the range of spells that our characters can learn and cast. And Crrool has also basically gotten all the levels he needs to be able to purchase the spells at this point in the run. Boxmeister opting to fight the nightmares over here. Again, they're runnable, although part of the route is designed around killing them, as it can be difficult to run from them, and we can use the experience from killing them. I think the significant reason that they do Ice Cave in this version is because Evil Eye is significantly more cooperative in this version and is easier to grind on compared to Agama's in Mount Gulg that you see in the NES version and other versions. And yes, there are some differences in the encounter rate here. You can't manipulate encounters like you can in the NES version. Encounters raise at a certain threat level depending on which tile type you walk on in this one. So Crrool has detoured over to Melman to pick up his first two spells, which are Healara for the White Mage and Teleport for the Black Mage. Healara will be our primary means of healing, and Teleport will save us a bunch of time backtracking in dungeons. And Crrool also went into Elfheim and picked up Haste for the Black Mage, which is a very powerful buff which will double the attacks of characters. You'll see that primarily on the later Fiend fights and the final fight of the game. So once Crrool has that, he's actually going to stop over here at Mount Gulg. And you're going to notice he's going to be running for most encounters here, but he's also going to be walking on lava tiles when he has the option to walk between lava or these stone tiles here. Walking on the lava tiles actually damages his characters, one for each tile that he steps on, but there is no risk of an encounter when you step on the lava tile. So it minimizes your encounters to walk on them as much as possible throughout this dungeon. And then he can use the heal aura that he picked up from Melman to heal in case his characters happen to get a little bit low on health. He may not heal. He may heal if he's feeling a little uncomfortable. He may not heal until the very end of the dungeon. But we'll have to see what he chooses to do here. He's opting to take a little bit of a heal here, just to be safe. There's no particularly dangerous encounters here unless you happen to be at low health and or get ambushed. So if you get yourself a little low and then happen to get an unlucky ambush, it can be very dangerous here, but otherwise you're not in particular danger from the enemies here. And Crrool making pretty quick time of Mount Gulg, which is easily the shortest of the 4 dungeons here. Boxmeister, meanwhile, has picked up the Rat's Tail and is detouring to go pick up the class change. Well, the other significant thing is you don't really need to utilize houses or anything like that in this PlayStation version, in this PSP version of the game. We don't need to restore charges because there are no charges. This game has changed out the spell charge system from the original game with the MP system that you find in much later games. And healing is largely not necessary, as this game also features Phoenix Downs, Ethers, and items of that nature, which didn't exist in the original game. So this is a lot more casual friendly. So Crrool takes down Marilith in this version. You may know her as Carrie in the NES version. She's a bit of a pushover with the barbarian swords we've picked up. And Crrool's watching a brief cutscene to show the second of the 4 bonus dungeons opening here. After he has to watch that, he just exits out of this. And we're going to see a slight route divergence here, as there's a slight shopping order difference here. So Crrool's basically going to be heading over here at the same time that Box is heading over here to this desert caravan to pick it up, the fairies bottle here. So while it briefly looks like Box is ahead, Crrool's actually ahead because he's already gone through the entire Mount Gulg at this point, and Box still has to do that. Crrool getting a very unfortunate Ogre Mage Hellhound encounter here. One of the rare unrunnables that are in this section of the game. It's not particularly dangerous to us, it just wastes time. Stopping in this caravan, they purchase the bottled fairy, which they need to take here over to Gaia, like you see Box doing on his screen. And then in this version of the game, once you have actually purchased that from him, a second menu of items opens up with a bunch of temporary buff items you can use in combat. You don't normally see these in other versions of the game. I think they're only available in the VA and PSP version of the game. And we purchase Giant's Tonics, which can be used to raise our character's maximum HP by 200 for the duration of a combat. It's a bit of a safety measure against the final boss Chaos. If our characters get enough of HP level ups throughout the run, you may not see them use them in the final fight, but in case they happen to get low rolls from their characters, this gives them an opportunity to basically overcome that and deal with it. So Box is the first one to finish up the little quest to purchase the fairy, but now that he's done there, he's going to actually go straight to Mount Gulg, and he's going to shop after doing Mount Gulg, whereas Crrool is basically already done with the shopping and is now going to start working his way towards Onrak and the Sunken Shrine. Once you have the Oxy Ale, you're able to breathe underwater, which is where the Sunken Shrine is located. So Box is furiously going to make up as much time as he can here in Mount Gulg. Crrool getting another unrunnable encounter here on the overworld, which is a bit unfortunate for him. This Ice Gigas Winter Wolf is a little, but the easiest way to deal with them at this point in time is just to use the Barbarian Swords to attack them. And Crrool actually getting an Ice Shield drop, which has no significance at all whatsoever this run, but it's nice to see. So once in Onrak here, we don't need anything from the town, we just head to this bottom corner here, And this little mermaid is actually guarding the entrance to Sunken Shrine here. Now that we have the Oxyale, we just can proceed in here and make our way through here. Box getting a little unlucky here. This is not a particularly dangerous group, but he's been running a little bit riskier than Crrool to this point. Box doesn't have the spell that Crrool had at this point, so if Box is going to heal, he's going to have to use potions at this point, which takes a little bit longer than using the Heal Aura spell. Crrool getting a Water Naga attack, which is a little dangerous for him, and Water Naga gets off a Thundara attack, which hurts his party a bit. Box is now at Marilith. Luckily for him, Marilith is not particularly dangerous here. So Crrool's first objective here in the Sunken Shrine is to go actually up to the top floor. You start on the 3rd floor, and you want to go up to the 5th floor to pick up a key item, the Rosetta Stone, which we don't need here, but we need to access the Flying Fortress dungeon after this dungeon here. Crrool getting an unrunnable pack here of Sahuagin chiefs and princes. And this is a rather large group, so the only way he really has to deal with them is to use the Judgment Staff to quickly clear them. Box, meanwhile, had no trouble with Marilith. Crrool finished off the 4th floor, and he made his floor. There's actually no encounters on this floor, so he's just got to walk around to get to the chest that contains the Rosetta Stone here. And as we've seen Crrool do a couple times now, he has the teleport spell on his Black Mage, so he does not need to walk back anymore. Casting teleport on your mage basically returns them to the end of the prior floor. So in this case, he's just going to cast it twice, which is going to put us almost right back to the start of the dungeon of the Sunken Shrine. And then he's going to work his way the other way to head towards Kraken here. Box, meanwhile, is going to do the shopping that Crrool did a little bit earlier. He's going to do it in a slightly different order here. But the routes basically converge here at Onrak. So Crrool is the first one here to basically converge his route. That Box is going to be getting slightly after him. Crrool is largely just hoping to avoid the unrunnable enemy encounters that you get here in the shrine. None of them are particularly dangerous to us at this point in the run. But if he happens to get large groups of Sahuagin Prince and Chiefs, those are unrunnable. If he happens to get Water Elementals, those are unrunnable. If he happens to get packs of Ghosts, those are unrunnable. Those are the 3 big ones he doesn't want to see. They're all capable of showing up on many of the floors here. And then we see Crrool doing a quick detour into this room for an item called the Light Axe. We can use this to glitch another piece of equipment, in this case called the Survival Vest. This is another bonus piece of equipment only obtainable usually from the Super Boss in the PSP version. Equipping each copy of this on our characters adds 15 agility, and Crrool is additionally also using the healing staff that he found earlier to glitch an item called the Lordly Robes onto one of his mages. That adds 20 points of agility, or I'm sorry, intelligence, which intelligence also happens to factor into your chances to escape from combat, but more importantly, it increases the damage your characters do using these items in combat. So it greatly increases the amount of damage his Black Mage is going to be doing, and guarantees that they'll be killing larger enemy groups that have higher HP pools. So Crrool has made his way to the final floor here. The only unrunnable enemy he can see on this floor is the Water Elementals. But it's a bit of a long floor that he's got to work his way through, so he's just going to work his way through, while in the meantime, Box is working his way towards the Rosetta Stone, a couple floors above. One advantage Boxmeister has at this point is Boxmeister has spent a little more time glitching a couple of key pieces of equipment, including the Black Robe and the Mage's Staff, which can save him a little bit of time against certain enemy groups here, as the Ghosts are vulnerable to fire. These water elementals are vulnerable to blizzard, but I'm not sure that he has enough intelligence on his white mage right now to be able to kill them off. So, rather safe than sorry, he's going to use the judgment staff here just to make sure he can kill them off. Crrool, meanwhile, is actually going to just take 2 shots and take down Kraken. Kraken is actually the biggest pushover in this version of the game, because with the extremely overpowered gear we have, he can't do any significant damage, and he has no significant AoE attacks that he'll live long enough to be able to cast against us. The worst he can cast is, I think, Ink, which can blind us, and that doesn't do anywhere near enough damage. And blind has very little effect against our characters. So Box picks up the Rosetta Stone while Crrool is watching this next cutscene that plays after opening the 3rd dungeon. The 3rd bonus dungeon here. Box getting a preemptive. As a reminder, that basically means his first attempt to run will be successful. Now here's a difference that we'll see. So Crrool didn't actually see any ghost groups here, but Crrool also doesn't have this little mage's staff that Boxmeister spent a little time glitching. So you can see that's a little bit faster than using the judgment staff against these unrunnable enemy groups here. It's a little unlucky to run into it, but he's got a couple of options to use against enemy groups that might save a little time versus Crrool if Crrool happens to run into them and needs to use the judgment staff. Just because their animations are shorter and they do enough damage to kill these enemies. So Crrool, having finished up the Sunken Shrine, is going to go up here now to the Waterfall Cavern, and it's going to take a safety save here. You might be worried about running into green dragons here, just in case. Boxmeister, meanwhile, is working his way over here to the Light Axe room. And if you're wondering why he's specifically approaching it from the right side, it's because the left side and the underside of that chest, stepping on those tiles will force an encounter. The encounter is not... you can actually run from these encounters, but it's far easier not to get the encounter in the first place. So taking the extra steps to approach it from the other side where it's not trapped is easily the best move that he can make here. Box is working on putting survival vest on his characters, and you'll notice here he put a 4th survival vest on the shield slot here for his black mage to greatly increase his agility. So his black mage is going to have the most agility of all of his characters by far. And then he's going to do 2 survival vests and 2 lordly robes on his white mage. So his white mage will be the primary damage dealer against larger groups of enemies. And Box is going to use gauntlets here to quickly take down this group. And with the lordly robes equipped on the white mage, she can do enough damage to make sure that that group goes down very quickly. Crrool getting exceptionally unlucky with these Pyralisk attacks, Pyralisk enemy groups here. Crrool's going to get probably one more fight against them, because as soon as he enters this final room here in Waterfall, there's a forced encounter right on this first tile here. And, oh, it's an ambush too. That's really unfortunate for him. We'll have to see what happens here. This is probably some of the worst luck I've seen in terms of Pyralisk encounters in a long time in this cave. This is a large enemy. This tends to be a 9-enemy fight when you run onto this tile. So that wasted quite a lot of time, those last couple encounters that he got. But, Crrool has successfully made his way through the cave now. He's talked to this robot here, and he's going to pick up the Warp Cube, the first of 2 items he needs to be able to go through the entirety of Flying Fortress. And another Pyralisk encounter. That is a pretty trolly set of encounters that if I've ever seen a group like that. So Crrool picks up the ribbon in the chest here, and in a little bit of a twist, he's basically going to turn that into an item. He's going to glitch that into an item called the Geek Tax, which by itself has no value to us in this run. except that once we have a copy of the Gigan tax, we can use it to basically reverse glitch additional copies of the ribbon. So Crrool basically took one ribbon and turned it into 4 via 2 separate glitchings. So now all of his characters have that, and he's no longer vulnerable to those Pyralisk attacks or attacks of that nature anymore. So Crrool is pretty safe at this point. Boxmeister has defeated Kraken and is just watching the cutscene here. Crrool, meanwhile, is going to head over here to Melmond and take the Rosetta Stone he picked up earlier. He's going to get it translated by the fabulous Dr. Un, who is sitting here in this back corner of Melmond. And once he's all set, Crrool can basically just use a teleport out with his Black Mage. And now Crrool has what he needs to be able to enter. Now that he's translated the Rosetta Stone, his characters can speak Lufenish, the language of the Lufenians NPCs, which is the next destination he's going to be going here. So he's going to head over here and park a bit of a ways away, because unfortunately they didn't leave him a lot of spots to land his airship. So the farthest spot is quite a ways away from Lufenia. You can walk over that pond there, as pond tiles tend to have a lower encounter rate than forests. Boxmeister is working his way through the waterfall cave at this point. Crrool getting Minotaur Zombie Troll group here, which is unrunnable. So his options here are either to attack with all of his characters or to use the Judgment Staff to clear out the group. If he's worried that his characters might not do enough HP, might not do enough damage with the staff, then it's probably smarter to attack. Crrool getting a Winter Wolf ambush here, which could be a little bit of a time loss depending on how many of them decide to use their Ice Storm attack. It doesn't do a lot of damage, but there's enough wolves where it could add up if enough of them do that. But it looks like only one of the 6 wolves actually did that, and then Crrool's able to run away. So that's good for him. Box, meanwhile, has picked up the warp cube from the robot and is now doing this ribbon glitch. Although he's very likely only going to put this on 2 characters, since his other characters have additional pieces of armor in their 4th slots right now. Now, until the survival vest, you'll notice that nobody put any weapons or armor on their shield slots at this point. But it's been determined that a couple of pieces of equipment, notably the ribbon, survival vest, and lordly robes, are all actually safe to equip on the shield slot without risking a hard lock. A number of the pieces we picked up earlier, like the knight's armor and the black garb, are not safe to equip on there and risk hard locking the game if an enemy happens to block an attack while you equip something on that slot. Crrool is getting a large group of Minotaur zombies here, which are unrunnable. So his quickest way to kill them is with the Judgment Staff here. Box, meanwhile, is making his way over to Melmond to translate the Rosetta Stone. Crrool getting another unrunnable here, but this is only 1, so he's going to switch attacks to make sure it takes a little less time to kill them than it would if he used the Judgment Staff. Box teleporting out now that he's all set here. No, it's not quite a Tyro. It's an Allosaurus. A little bit different. Actually, no, you're right. That's right. It actually is a Tyro. But the one we're really hoping to see is the T-Rex. In this case, it's the Tyrannosaur in this version, the T-Rex in the NES version. So, Box is on the walk now to Lufenia. Crrool, meanwhile, has completed the walk and now has all the items he needs. He needed to pick up the Chime in Lufenia, which gives him entrance here to the Mirage Tower. Mirage Tower is 3 floors long, and then at the end of the 3rd floor, there's a teleport cube he can stand on. He needs the warp cube from the waterfall cave in order to use that to teleport to the flying fortress, which is an additional 5 levels that he's going to have to work his way through. Crrool getting an unfortunate ambush against Hellhounds. Not particularly dangerous now that he has ribbons on his characters, but the animation time wastes a little time compared to what Box is getting. So Box is all set picking up the chime and is going to teleport out of here and do his best to catch up. So while Crrool has a bit of a lead at this point, it is not impossible for Box to be able to catch up. There's approximately 15 to 20 minutes left in the run at this point, depending on how much RNG each runner gets. Crrool having a little difficulty running from this Guardian group. Crrool's made his way to the 3rd floor now. Another ambush here, which is slowing him down a little bit. Lucky for him, neither vampire used their gaze attack, which has a longer animation than just attacking. But he's still struggling to run, which is really hurting him right now. Because while he's not particularly in danger of dying from anything, all of these attacks are just slowly adding up and giving Box more of an opportunity to catch up. Crrool reaches a forced encounter with a blue dragon as soon as you step on that tile, entering that room, and then uses a warp cube to go up to Flying Fortress here. Crrool's going to heal up and then begin his ascent on the Flying Fortress. It is again 5 floors high. We don't have to detour for anything at this point in the run. He just has to make his way through all 5 floors to get to Tiamat at the very end. With any luck, we'll be seeing a special guest appearance by our pal Warmech on the 5th floor. We'll have to wait and see if he decides to show today. Box getting ambushed by chimeras, which slows him down a little bit. Crrool's through the 3rd floor. This 4th floor, you could actually walk endlessly in any direction, and it will basically repeat. It's basically 4 corridors in any direction. But the easiest way to get there is to basically go either left and right 2, and then up or down 2. You can do that in either order. It doesn't really matter to get to the next location you need to. Crrool's taking a quick safety save just in case of an appearance by Warmech here. Box getting into a fight with the blue dragon here. No yet from Crrool. There may be an opportunity to get that after Tiamat. We'll have to see. Crrool, meanwhile, is going to start fighting against Tiamat here. Tiamat doing his Thunderbolt attack, which can hurt, but should not be able to kill all of his characters at this point. Tiamat only has 2400 HP in this encounter here. Box getting an unrunnable against an Evil Eye here. He's hoping to avoid that in particular because it's, I believe, the only unrunnable here in this Flying Fortress. This poison dart attack from these Manticores is a little annoying. But 2 of his characters are immune to poison at this point, so they're not particularly dangerous. Just waste a bit of time. It definitely appears that Box has made up a little bit of time here. Probably just due to the very poor ambushes that Crrool has been getting. But Box has also been having a share of somewhat poor ambushes, and I believe that's now the 2nd or 3rd Manticore ambush in a row. That's really, really slowing him down here. And no appearance from Warmech on Crrool's side, so our last opportunity to see that is going to be on Box's side coming up. Crrool, meanwhile, having defeated Tiamat, has vanquished all 4 Fiends of Chaos and will now be heading to the final dungeon. And Crrool gets one last troll encounter right on that last tile before entering the Gas Shrine. Box is working his way on the final floor, it looks like. Well, I don't know if he wants to see Warmech right now, because while it's very hyped to see Warmech, Warmech could potentially waste time if he tries to kill it. So I would probably put Crrool's lead at about 1 or 2 minutes right now. It's still not impossible for Box to be able to catch up here. There are several floors that can be really, really trolly and can slow Crrool down. Crrool taking a safety save here at the very start, which is a smart idea. If you're in the lead, it only takes a couple seconds to save, and can potentially save you minutes if you happen to get unlucky and wipe from poor enemy encounters. So Crrool begins his ascent up here. We haven't seen any Warmechs yet. Box has one last chance here to get one after this little cutscene plays out. But if he doesn't see it, then we're not going to be seeing him today. Crrool, meanwhile, making his way to the 3rd floor, and he's getting a group of gas dragons here, which is going to slow him down. And it doesn't look like we're going to get a Warmech today, unfortunately. So this green dragon encounter has slowed him down a bit over here. Crrool might be worried that he doesn't have enough power with the Judgment Staff on his Black Mage to kill them in one go. So if they don't have that, then his only option might be to attack them as he's doing. But they are worth quite a bit of experience at this point, so that gives him more opportunities to gain HP level ups for his Thief and Black Mage. In particular, he's hoping to get the Thief probably closer to 300 HP, and the Black Mage is approaching a pretty safe level in terms of not needing to use Giant's Tonics on the final fight here. Box has made his way over to the Chaos Shrine here. Crrool's had a really, really slow 3rd floor so far. And this is giving Box an opportunity to try to catch up, because he can, if he gets a very low number of encounters on the way from here to the Death Eye, as Crrool just did, he can definitely make up some of the time that he's down right now. So Crrool stops here to play the loot that we picked up at the very beginning of the game when we saved the princess. And this is pretty much the last cutscene that has to play out before the final boss. Box, meanwhile, trying to run away from white dragons, which are runnable, but if you fail to run from them, they can be very dangerous in this one. And Box's party is a little vulnerable here, as only 2 of his 4 characters have ribbons equipped. And the ribbons equipped reduce elemental damage by half that he can take here. Crrool getting a crappy encounter here, these Ice Gigas Winter Wolves. There's not a really great way for him to deal with it. Now, on the other hand, Box has this black robe that he picked up earlier from glitching, and using that is significantly faster than attacking with all 4 characters to take out a large group of green dragons. So while it was unlucky of him to get that encounter in the first place, he saved time compared to how much time Crrool spent trying to fight and kill the green dragons earlier. Crrool makes it to the 1st floor and takes a quick safety save in case of white dragon ambushes or other problems with white dragons. Box is only about 2 floors back right now, so he's not out of this at all, and he's definitely making up some time. Crrool, meanwhile, getting some purple worms, which are unrunnable. His only real way to deal with them at this point is just to attack them, get rid of them. Black Knights for Box, which are runnable. So Box is here at this final little cutscene where he's got to play the loot. Meanwhile, Crrool's making his way onto the first of the 4 refight floors. This is Lich's floor, so many of the enemies you see here were enemies that he might have seen in the Earth Cave. These Earth Elementals are pretty rare in the Earth Cave here, but they're a little more common here. Did Box just kill Phantoon? It's debatable. It certainly looks like him, doesn't it? Crrool is right here at Lich, and he's going to go straight for it and just try to take him out. Crrool's got to do 2,800 damage to Lich and has no problems doing that. Lucky for him, Lich opted not to use his flare attack, which is just as long as our flare attack and does quite a lot of damage to our characters. If his characters had gotten flared, it would have cost him a little time menuing to get a couple of them back up to fighting shape. So it's better for us if we don't see that, because it saves you a lot of time on animation, plus a couple seconds of menuing. Box is now on Lich's floor, so he's got to go through the whole floor here, but he's getting a group of Earth Elementals and opting to attack. His Black Mage is actually dead at the moment. I didn't see what killed him. Probably a White Dragon ambush, because that's a very common way to do it. Crrool, meanwhile, is approaching Marilith here. Marilith, I believe, has 3,200 in this fight, so this might take more than one round of combat, depending on damage rolls. But Marilith is probably the weakest of the 4 refights at this point. She doesn't have a particularly dangerous attack other than Faraga, which, with Crrool's equipment setup, is not going to do enough to him. Boxmeister, unfortunately, getting a group of Earth Elementals here, and he's going to take a damage roll to see if he can get enough damage from his Mage's Staff to get that, and he does not, which might cost him some time here. Crrool, meanwhile, is on Kraken's floor, trying to work his way from this group. He particularly doesn't want to see water elemental groups like these. It's going to cost him some time to deal with them. This Earth Medusa group is not particularly dangerous to Box here. Box is going to have to haul at this point because he's fallen behind and he's having a little trouble trying to keep pace with Crrool, and he's running out of time to catch him. So Box reaches Lich while Crrool is stuck having to deal with water elementals here, and that was a huge crit from the ninja on Lich for Box, which saved him quite a bit of time there. Crrool, meanwhile, running into Kraken here. For this fight, Kraken's got 3,600 HP, and Crrool is just going to try to chew through that as quickly as he can with all 4 of his characters. Not quite 1 round for him, but it should easily be 2 rounds. Box is just going to have to hope for some good luck here on these last couple floors, because he needs to make up some time here. A Fire Lizard is not what he wants here, because if they use their little blaze attack, they can waste some time. Luckily for him, they didn't do it. Crrool is now on the final refight floor, which is the shortest of the 4th of the floors, if you go straight here. But this is easily the longest of the 4 refights here, as Tiamat has 5,500 in this one. So this is easily going to take at least 2 rounds, and possibly 3 depending on damage rolls from his characters. Box, meanwhile, has no problems with Marilith, and is a little less than 2 floors behind him. Unfortunately for Crrool, unfortunately for Box, there's only 1 floor left for Crrool once he gets through this one, and he gets no other encounters. So Crrool is all done here and is making his way to the final boss. So he's just going to have to quickly set up for the final fight here. So his goal here is basically going to be putting a piece of equipment called the Golden Staff on his mage to increase his intelligence so he does as much healing as possible. And additionally, he's going to take off the survival vest he had on earlier to lower his agility to guarantee that the White Mage acts last in the combat round. We want the white mage to consistently act last so that we have the opportunity to basically plan when our white mage is able to take his turn and heal at the end of each round so that he has a chance to recover from the many powerful attacks that Chaos uses. So Crrool is going to play it a little safe, I think, and use the Giant's Tonics he picked up here, which is going to raise the max HP of his Thief and his Black Mage. Chaos is going to open here with Blaze, which is one of his more powerful attacks, and it could be problematic for Crrool depending on what he follows up with here. Box has made his way to Tiamat, so he's only one fight back. If he can get through this fight quickly. So from this point on, Crrool is basically going to be attacking with his melee characters and hasting all the melee characters, including his Black Mage with his Black Mage. The White Mage is going to be healing every round at this point. And Crrool's, as soon as everybody's hasted up, Crrool's going to be trying to hold X to win at that point, just to enter it up. Chaos uses Tsunami here, which is another dangerous attack, which does a lot of damage, and puts his Thief in a bit of a dangerous spot here. The White Mage is going to be trying to heal. The Thief may be vulnerable to Cyclone if it happens this turn, we'll have to see. He does not use it. He uses a physical attack, which is exactly what Crrool wants to see at this point, because it is significantly faster animation-wise than any of his other attacks. Box, in the meantime, is setting up for the final fight, while Crrool is getting Cyclone. It's a really long animation here, does a lot of damage, but Crrool's had plenty of opportunity to heal, so this should not be a significant problem for him at this point. So Crrool's basically in hold X to win mode. And Box is going to begin the fight here. And just as Box begins, Crrool has finished in first place. SRL time of 1:31:47 is what we have here. So congrats to Crrool on advancing in the winner's bracket. Box, meanwhile, is going to try to do the same strategy that Crrool had, but his Black Mage is particularly low at this point, so that could be really dangerous since Chaos opted to use Blaze to open up. And Crrool is joining us now.
Hello.
How you doing? Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah,
that pretty solid run there.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool run. I mean, started out behind a bit, had a bit of a rough start, but all in all, I can't complain.
So meanwhile, we're just watching Box finish out here. Box has unfortunately had a bit of a nasty opening from Chaos and has lost his Thief and Black Mage. But he's trying to recover here. He's got the Black Mage back up. We'll see if we can get the Thief back up here. Unfortunately for him, once his characters go down, they lose their haste ability. So they have to be re-hasted. And plus, this gives more opportunities for Chaos to use as many attacks. This Blizzaga is going to take the Thief right back down again. So Crrool, while we watch Box doing this, how did you feel about that run overall?
Sorry. All in all, that was a pretty decent run. I mean, me and Box had been in a voice chat throughout the entire thing, so we kind of knew what was going on each other's ends. yeah, I mean, I played well. I don't think I made any major mistakes anywhere. I don't even think I made a lot of minor mistakes for that matter. So yeah, like, I played it well. RNG was in my favor. Can't complain.
So it looks like Box is recovered for the moment and has 2 of his 3 characters hasted again. The only danger at this point is his white mage running out of MP, but he's using an ether to try to keep her going.
Yeah, and if not, even then, he should be pretty close to a kill, I think.
Getting a little unlucky Slowra, but it misses on Warrior. So this is basically hold X to win mode for Box, so long as he can get him down in 5 rounds, because he's only got 4 rounds worth of MP right now. Just needs to dodge a really unlucky crit, and he should be fine. Yeah, Box had a pretty good lead for the early part of this race. I want to say until Earth Cave, and he had a very, very solid RNG in the from Earth Cave onward. It seemed like Crrool.
Yeah, I mean, he was in the lead up until the Joltonic. At Joltonic, we were basically tied. We've had live comparison throughout, so you know, again, kind of knew where he was at throughout the entire thing. I took the lead at Joltonic, and we kind of kept close for a while, but past that, she was just in my favor, especially Earth.
Congratulations, GG Box.
Terrible Chaos fight, terrible.
You saved it, though.
Yeah, on the one occasion that I don't save before Chaos, he kills off all my hasted party members, so I have to revive them. Oh, it's really terrible. Oh, but I managed to pull it off. Yeah.
I mean, in general, it seemed like you played riskier than Crrool in terms of it didn't take anywhere near as many safety saves.
Yeah, I mean, I have an active life split comparison up, so I knew I was behind, and especially with the RNG I'm getting, I have a good inkling that I'm quite. Well, yeah, I thought, well, I'm gonna take it less safe, and I know that because I know that at the end game I might be able to save some time back on him on the account of having the items to deal with the unrunnables a little bit quicker, but. Yeah, I knew from the moment that we entered the Chaos Shrine that I would need some godlike RNG to be able to pull ahead. And I mean, it's a fair win anyways. It was a fun race. We had a good time in voice chats.
Yeah, for sure. Like, all in all, it's been a race where we kind of knew it was going to be anyone's game. I mean, we've raced each other for bigger events and whatnot twice now, and it was 1-1, once at BSG and then once at ESA. So this was going to be the tiebreaker, and you know, at least it was a fun match throughout as a result.
Yeah.
So how did you like that waterfall cave rule? That was quite a number of pyrolisks there.
Yeah, my God, what the heck was that? That was one heck of a waterfall cave, right? Never again, please.
You had that one, and you had quite all those green dragons in the early going on. Chaos Shrine was slowing you down.
Yeah, I mean, I knew the lead was significant, but when I saw all those green dragons pop up, I did start to question a little bit of, not like this, not this again. Because I have lost a race while being 2 minutes ahead going into Chaos Shrine.
Nah, it's never fun to lose to the RNG like that, but there's really nothing you can do about it other than deal with what the game gives you.
Yep, for sure.
So, Box, how were you with that run overall?
Yeah, the RNG wasn't really that great. I started out decent, but yeah, the RNG took a big dip after that, and I never recovered from it. So yeah, I mean, at times it was alright. I like finally getting that 1 in 64 Dragon Zombie in the city for the spike. Oh, my first one, I think. 1 in 64. It's 1 in 64, right?
Dragon Zombies, I believe, on the 3rd floor. Or no, you can't get them on the. Oh, yes, you can on the 3rd. You get them on the early floors, yeah.
4th throughout that dungeon.
Yeah. So with the win today, Crrool advances in our winners bracket here and keeps many people's predictions going pretty well so far.
I think I've broken more predictions than I've kept.
We'll have to see. I actually didn't look at people's predictions after we locked it last night.
Yeah, no, I have. Before the match, I had like 20 minutes to kill, so I went over a couple of predictions. I think I've killed more predictions than I've kept, so I'm happy.
At the very least, my prediction.
So Box will survive. Box will just go down to the lower bracket here and join our pal Shinbreaker down there.
Yeah, I mean, my prediction is worth anything. It's, I mean, I predicted he would lose this one, and then we would meet again in the finals. So, Box, I'll see you there.
I would, yeah, hopefully that's the case. Hopefully I get better RNG next match.
Or a more cooperative chaos, right?
At least would already be quite helpful.
Yeah, it's the problem I've been having in a lot of my practice runs is chaos is very uncooperative and always gives me very slow patterns.
Yeah.
So we'll wrap it up here, but I just want to thank everyone for watching. I want to thank Sfeasel for hosting us here on Speed Gaming here, and the rest of their crew for assisting. I want to thank you, Box and Crrool, for the race today.
Yeah, thank you for commentating.
I was still a little under the weather, but I was kind of itching to do a match, at least to commentate a match for once.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both.
So yeah. So again, thank you everybody for watching today. I'm not sure what's coming up next on this channel, but I'm sure there's plenty of activity as Speed Gaming has been quite busy these days, so be sure to hit that follow button here or subscribe if you guys want to support the channel. But yeah, stay tuned. There will be more FF1 races, FF1 PSP races coming in the in this next week as we work our way through our bracket stage. So thanks again for everyone, and we'll hope you guys have a good rest of the day here today.